How's it going, everybody? Wild Oz Raptor here today, and we're going to be playing Fallout New Vegas to find out, can you beat the game using the nail gun? The rules for this playthrough are fairly simple. The nail gun is the only weapon I can use, and the game must be on normal difficulty. As you can see here in my specials, I decided to put a lot of points into my endurance, intelligence, agility, and luck, as I figured they would be the most useful. After that, it was time to choose some skills. I went with guns, medicine, and repair because I figured that would help me a lot. After that, I chose the fast shot trait because I figured that would be quite helpful with the nail gun, and I also decided to choose Wild Wasteland for the hell of it. I then decided to loot Doc Mitchell's house just for anything I could sell. After that, I decided to make my way to the general store in Goodsprings so I could do some trading. After that, I made my way south towards Prim because I had to get to the canyon wreckage so I could enter the Savage Divide and get my hands on a nail gun. I eventually made my way to the Savage Divide and figured without any armor I would try and run through as quickly as possible so I could try and get my hands on a nail gun. Once I made my way inside the bunker, I had to get a little bit of help from Edie, as he would have to help me open some doors. I eventually made my way through the bunker and I found a toolbox which had some nails in it, which also meant at this point I had some ammo for my gun. I managed to level up upon exiting the bunker, which meant that I could choose the Swift Learner perk and get some extra experience early on in the game. So I just exited the bunker and found myself in a garage in Hopeville. Surely enough, there was plenty of scrap metal in that lying around, but I opened a toolbox and there it was. So now that I had a nail gun, it was time to proceed back to the Mojave Wasteland so I could start the storyline. As soon as I exited the Savage Divide, I was ambushed by a bunch of coyotes, and I figured I'd try and test the nail gun out for the first time. After that, I made my way back to Goodsprings so I could craft some nails, and also do a quest with Sonny to try and get some extra experience early on. I then proceeded into the bar so I could swiftly kill Joe Cobb, and upon doing so, I managed to level up once again. After that, I made my way to Victor's shack so I could try and loot any scrap metal that I could find. Eventually, the powder gangers decided to raid town, and surely enough, I ran out of ammo, so I did the next best thing and I just sat back and watched. After that, I proceeded to Sloan, and I figured I would try and see if they had any scrap metal lying around. I then decided a fair trade would be to fix Snuffle's legs for all the scrap metal they willingly gave me. After that, I made my way to Prim and decided to test the nail gun out again on some escaped convicts. As I made my way south towards the Mojave outpost, I'd run out of ammo once again, so I figured the next best thing for me to do would be to run past all of the enemies I encountered. I eventually reached the Mojave outpost and leveled up once again. While I was there, I decided to undertake some quests, which led me to Nipton. Because I lacked a lot of ammo, I decided to just let the Caesar's Legion walk. After Nipton, I returned back to the Mojave outpost to trade in my quests for some XP. I headed back to Nipton so I could craft some nails and make my way towards Novak. I eventually came across Wolfhorn Ranch, which meant that I had plenty of scrap metal so I could craft some nails. I also found my way to Outpost Charlie, where I also picked up a handful of scrap metal. So I eventually found Novak, and this was quite helpful because in Novak there was a reloading station with a handful of scrap metal around, so I decided to craft quite a few nails. I then decided to help Burnout so I could watch Jeannie Mae Crawford's head get blown off right in front of me. Just down the road from Novak we found Gibson Scrapyard, where I purchased a handful of scrap metal from Old Lady Gibson. I also decided at this point that I would mark the El Dorado substation, as I knew I would need to come back here later in the storyline. At this point in the game, I'd reached the 188 trading post, completely ignored Veronica, and made my way towards the Gunrunners, where I knew that the Gunrunners vendor was selling nails, so I purchased everything that he had. After that, I made my way to the Boomers base, where George decided to run in head first towards some artillery, and he got blown to shit. So I eventually reached the Boomers gates, where they let me in, and I decided to help them for any extra experience. After a short while helping the Boomers around the base, I eventually became idolized, which meant that I could proceed with the storyline. I eventually made my way to the strip and spoke to Benny, and I couldn't get him alone one-on-one this time, so I decided I would try and leave the tops, re-enter so I could kill him. Unfortunately, the second time I entered, he disappeared, so I killed everyone else instead. I eventually made my way towards Yes Man in Benny's room so I could continue the storyline, and he advised me that I had to get to know the other tribes. So I made my way towards the White Glove Society, told them that they could be ignored,
I hear you've been
made my
making
way
some
towards the
waves
murders and said the same thing, and eventually it was time to kill Mr. House. After that, I headed west towards Red Rock Canyon so I could tell Yes Man to ignore the Great Khans. At this point in the game, I had to try and get the help of the NCR, because the quartermaster at Hoover Dam has thousands and thousands upon ammo. I figured this would help me quite a lot because finding scrap metal and making nails was just proving way too difficult. After that, I went to Hidden Valley so I could cripple some scorpions and get familiar with the Brotherhood of Steel.
Listen very closely and do as I say. Your life depends on it.
From there I returned back to the strip and Yes Man advised me that I had to head towards the fort so I could upgrade all of the Securitrons. This meant making my way towards Cottonwood Cove.
The trip will take a few hours.
I eventually spoke to Caesar at the fort, and from there I headed down the hill towards the bunker so I could upgrade the Securitrons. After that I met with Yes Man and told him to meet me back at the Lucky 38 Casino. All that was left for me to do now was to power the substation and buy some supplies for the final battle at Hoover Dam. After that, I returned back to Yes Man and it was time to begin the final battle. So at Hoover Dam, I came across my first hurdle, a bunch of Centurions with armour. I figured this would be a good indication how hard it would be trying to fight the Legate at the end of the game. I eventually made my way through the dam and I still had plenty of ammo to fight the Legate. I eventually reached the camp and now it was time to fight the Legate face to face.
A challenge.
The final battle took multiple attempts, but eventually I managed to get the Legate stuck behind some barriers and finished him off. After that, I faced General Oliver, but didn't get much of a chance to get any shots in, as the Securitrons were quite quick to dismiss him and his troops. So in conclusion, yes, you can beat Fallout New Vegas with just a nail gun. This is quite a difficult playthrough, but I quite enjoyed it as well. If you enjoyed this playthrough, please be sure to give the video a like and subscribe for any more content in the future. Thanks for watching.